I told you a story a long, long time ago. Well, in your idea, a long, long time ago. A story I remember from another lifetime. A story of coming to this world as a non-human. A story of coming as a scientist to explore this world and study its people. In effect, I suppose that would make us anthropologists. But in a way, it was more religion than science, because we respected sentience, the ability to think above most other things. And so the arising of sentience in a species was a miraculous thing. And we had lifespans that could easily go 500,000 of your years, right? We were an older race, well, by your standards. And our technology had gotten rid of most diseases, and accidents were uncommon. So we could go a place and study there for 100,000 years and not think too much of it, any more than you think of working in the same job for 40 years. It was just a part of our lifespan. And so they came here to study for 100,000 or 200,000 years and watch as humans struggled towards sentience. And it was a really big deal. Well, things went wrong. I've told you what went wrong. I've helped you to understand why I think it happened. And one of the things we did was to meddle with human DNA, to interfere with the process of arising sentience. Clearly something was wrong, because that was, the greatest travesty for us. And so we meddled with human sentience. We forced them to arise ahead of their time. Not because it was good for them, but because something was going wrong and our people were going crazy, and we wanted a labor force to go into the mines and collect certain metals, specifically gold, but to collect things and basically to do the labor for us because there were so few of us. And in terms of that race, it was a totally unacceptable decision. And in terms of the way most sentient species in the galaxy work. I mean, even your species can understand this, the Star Trek Prime Directive. You don't interfere with the development of a species. Not a difficult concept, but we did. And this was the arising of Homo sapiens on your planet. From Homo erectus to Homo sapiens. And a lot of drama and a lot of stupid stuff happened. But I remember after I left the main group, after I was kicked out, the smaller part of the group, the third or so that were remaining, they did this a second time. They meddled a second time to shift humans. And this was only 100,000 years ago, 130,000 years ago. And they did it to make humans physically weaker, to make them less intelligent, to make them less aggressive, and to make them less powerful. There's an idea that shows up in the fiction of your world of the Homo erectus tribes being sentient and having language, but they didn't build structures because they lived in trees and they spoke to the trees and the tree spirits and the waters and the plants and basically had magic. They were a primitive magical tribe. And these mythologies come up because they're true. I don't know how sentient Homo erectus was, but they did have an innate connection to the land. They could tell when an earthquake or a tidal wave was going to happen the same way animals can. They could tell when it was going to be an early snow or some natural disaster was going to occur, just as animals can. And their size, their strength, their longer lifespan, the fact that they were fairly peaceful, these things made them dangerous because they bred fast. And pretty soon they would have covered the entire world and all spoken the same language and gotten along and been a powerful and peaceful race that was in touch with nature, and as a result had what I would call and what you might call magic. Right? They could talk to the animal herds, and the animals would sacrifice someone so that the humans could live, or they could talk to a river and cause it to change its course. And these were very dangerous abilities, right? So when there's only a very small number of you, and there's a population of the enemy, even if they're not super smart, that's rapidly growing towards the millions, and they have long lifespans, and they're strong and durable, and they have the magic that allows them to shape things. I mean, imagine if they directed a river so that the water no longer came to your camp, and your people were all starving or dying of thirst. Or if they did as Hercules did and redirect a river to actually flood your camp. This was dangerous. And I am only beginning to understand this. But the second reworking was to take away human power. It made them less strong, less durable. It shortened their lifespan, made them more vulnerable to their environment, so they die out faster, so the population wouldn't grow. It made them more aggressive and more sexual, so they would fight among themselves and control their population. And it took away their magic. Now, I just ran across a mythology, the evolution of the term soulmates, where one of the Greek gods, that's what these people set themselves up to be, the gods, one of the Greek gods cut people in half. And so you spend your entire life looking for the rest of you. Realize that that is what happened. That, not that you had 4 arms and 4 legs and 2 faces. I mean, that's the adaptation of the mythology for the children of the time. But rather that humans had great power and potential in their connection to nature, in their empathy with one another. And that was intentionally broken down. And so all the humans that are seeking magic now, reading Harry Potter and so on, they are coming to a place where they are craving again that wholeness they should have had, that was taken away by that shift from the early primitive Homo sapiens to the modern Homo sapiens sapiens. And this is why humans have had so much trouble finding magic. This is why you hear so many people like the John Mayer song, "Something's missing and I don't know what it is." This is the root of the behavior of all mystics, a sense that there is something far greater they can't find, and they're seeking it. All of this because of the forced evolutionary step to so-called modern humans. This is where humans lost magic. And so in regaining it, it is not enough for us to want it. It is not enough for humans to lay the groundwork by making changes at the meta level. There is going to be a need to find the part that was cut off by this last shifting, by what these others did, where they took away something, probably not intentional, they weren't smart enough, but they took something that made humans unable to feel the planet, to sense one another, to communicate more directly. They took that away from them. And they may have done that on purpose. My memory says very clearly that this other race was able to speak directly, without words, from one mind to another. They had evolved to that level. And so they probably understood very well what part of the brain that ability came from. And they separated. Like the early cure for, I think, epilepsy, where they split the corpus callosum and left you with 2 totally separate brains. Brutal and ugly, but humans did this to one another in the name of helping. And in fact, this was done to you. Some large part of you was cut away. And I don't feel that it was removed from the system. that kind of thing would have been too damaging, right? Rather, it was just separated so that the two separate parts could no longer touch. And so, in the ability to regain magic, we will need to develop a way, first an understanding of what was separated, and then a way for people to begin to put these pieces back together. And as they put them back together, as they heal this in themselves, then they can begin to retouch the energies of nature, the spirits out there, to speak mind to mind with one another, and so on. Yes, we're touching the fringes of that now. But I feel the reason we are not having more success is because of that work that was done 100 and approximately 30,000 years ago that changed the biology. So we are going to have to find a way to repair that damage in each of us. And doing so, then regain access to these things we lost so long ago.